Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, the show that takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible.
GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello, everybody. How is it going today? I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. Happy Monday. Happy brand new start to the week. We get a brand new opportunity to create the life we want to live, and I am here to help you do exactly that, to make your life, to live it to the happiest and the fullest. And just create the life exactly how you want to live it, which is, there's so much that goes into that. And I want to talk about today one very important thing in life, and that is sleep. That is sleep. We have to have quality of sleep to function properly. Our brains, our bodies, everything is working so hard all the time. And if we are not getting the right amount of sleep or the right quality of sleep, it can really disrupt our lives. And I'm sure you've had those nights where you've tossed and turned all night and got a couple hours of sleep, and your alarm goes off in the morning, and the whole day is almost like a write-off because you just feel no energy, you feel lethargic, maybe your appetite's off, you probably have a headache, you're probably feeling kind of down. So one of the things we're going to be talking about today is like the close relationship between sleep and depression and just mental health in general. I'm going to be talking about, reasons why you might not be sleeping. I feel like there's a lot of people that struggle with falling to sleep at night. And there's so many reasons behind that. So I'm going to be talking about that today. It's all really closely related to our mental health, to the way that we are living our lives. I'm going to talk also about insomnia. And insomnia is something I'm sure you've heard of, where you basically just cannot sleep. And some people have long-term insomnia where it happens quite frequently and quite consistently. Other people might just have short-term insomnia. You can get insomnia just from your jet lag. If you've gone on a trip and your time zones are different, you're going to have kind of a form of insomnia, where others are actually kind of unfortunate enough to have insomnia pretty much all the time. And you can definitely get insomnia at different stages in your life for different reasons, and it can come and it can go, but it is something that actually all of us do struggle with at one point in our lives, whether it's just a night or a week or months upon end. It is something that we all struggle with. So I'm going to be talking about that. I'm actually particularly going to be talking about some myths about insomnia. But then, of course, when I talk about all this information, I am, of course, going to be giving you tips and tricks to make sure that you are getting a better quality of sleep at night, and just how closely related that is to our mental health, and how, do we need quality of sleep or quantity of sleep? And these are questions I'm going to be discussing and figuring out with you and helping you, kind of making sure that you are functioning at the highest level possible that you can, because if we want to create the life we want to live, if we want to live it to the happiest and the fullest, sleep is so, so crucial. And a lot of people, everyone's different. I'm sure you've heard, okay, you got to get at least 8 hours of sleep. Me personally, if I get 8 hours of sleep, I feel quite gross, I guess. I feel kind of grungy. I feel like I've overslept. I think that might just be a stage of my life at the moment because my brain's going a million miles a second all the time. But I like my about 6 hours of sleep. That's my happy place. And not a lot of people are like that. Usually people do need 8 hours. Some people need 10 hours depending on the place that you're at. Other people can have like 4 hours of sleep and function. But I am a strong believer of power naps. We're going to be talking about naps today, the importance of that, how that relates to our mental health. And yeah, so lots to share today, lots of valuable information, because sleep is one of the most important things in our lives. We have to make sure we're getting quality of sleep. So let's talk about the complex kind of relationship between sleep and our mental health. So excessive sleepiness, like, it doesn't only affect your physical health, but it has a very, very big impact on your mental health as well. And so when you don't get, that number of sleep, for me it's 6 hours. Most people it's about 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep that you need. It can really heavily influence your outlook on life, your energy level, your motivation, your emotions. Have you ever been super tired and you're very emotional? Right? It just happens. It's so true. So if you're feeling really low, you may not actually realize the lack of sleep could be the culprit, or could be a huge reason for it. And even small levels of sleep deprivation over time can actually chip away at your happiness. And so you might see that you're less enthusiastic, maybe you're more irritable, or even have some symptoms of clinical depression, which can really come into play when you are very sleep deprived. So you might be feeling persistently sad, you might be feeling empty, like you just don't have the value. All these alterations to your mood can really affect your mental health, but also your relationships and your family dynamics as well. There's nothing worse than hanging out with a friend and they're just so grumpy, right? Have you ever gone to hang out with your friend and they're so grumpy, they're so irritable, and they're kind of snappy and rude, and you're like, wow, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed today. And then if you have that chronically all the time, your relationships are going to start to fizzle. There's one thing of, having a grumpy day, and then there's the next where it's actually constantly all of the time. And so the link between sleep and mood has been seen over and over and over by researchers and doctors, and people with insomnia actually have greater levels of depression and anxiety than those who sleep normally. That is just a fact. That's what the research has said. And they are actually 10 times as likely to have clinical depression and 17 times as likely to have clinical anxiety. So the more the person experiences insomnia and the more frequently they wake at night as a result, then that means the higher chances of developing depression. So do you see how important getting a quality of sleep is? And obstructive sleep apnea, which is a condition in which a person wakes frequently and very briefly throughout the night. You might be able to relate to this, but that's also related to depression as well. And there was one study of nearly about 19,000 people, and those with obstructive sleep apnea were 5 times as likely to suffer from clinical depression. And researchers believe this is because when sleep is disrupted over and over again, it can actually alter your brain activity and your neurochemicals that affect a person's mood and thinking. So your relationship between sleep and mood is quite complex. It's not just you're not getting quality sleep, you're going to develop depression. It's not just like that. It does have a role into it. It does play into it. But because disrupted sleep can lead to emotional changes, then clinical depression or anxiety, or, there's other psychiatric conditions as well that sleep can cause, like low quality of sleep. But these conditions can also compound or further disrupt your sleep, of course, right? So altered sleep patterns are basically a hallmark of many mental health issues. And if you might not realize that you are having mental health problems, or someone else close to you is having mental health problems, really paying attention to your sleep schedule or that person's sleep schedule can be a really strong indicator of what's going on in your head. And if you find yourself sleeping too little or too much on a regular basis, then it's quite important to make sure that you're bringing this up to your doctor. And so you can have a total physical exam and a mental exam and really kind of figure out the bigger picture, and then of course figure out your treatment plan as well. And a lot of people have insomnia for short periods of time. They try to take melatonin or some kind of sleeping medication, but that's not fixing the root of the problem. That's going to help you get to sleep that night, but it's not going to be fixing the root of the problem, which is really, what the issue is. We have to figure out what's at the core so we can really try to figure out what exactly is wrong. So I'm going to talk about some myths about insomnia because, sleep is quite trendy these days. And, whatever is scarce or hard to achieve, like it's valued, right? That sleep is valued. And so, when you land on this kind of routine of sleep deprivation, it really just kind of messes you up, and insomnia is inevitable, right? And so let's talk about the myth of insomnia. And the first myth I want to share with you is that you need 8 hours of sleep each night. This is, people think that one size fits all when it comes to 8 hours of sleep. But like I mentioned at the beginning of today's episode, I need 6 hours. That's like my happy part, like my happy spot. And most people it is average between about 7 and 9 hours, but anywhere between 5 and 10 hours is usually kind of your magic number. If you have more than that, you might feel groggy. If you have less than that, you're going to be feeling quite off as well. So, you got to kind of find out what makes you fall asleep and where your happy part is. I figured out after years that 6 hours kind of is my happy spot. I just find that when I sleep more than that, I feel gross. And so you got to be able to find your magic number. And it kind of takes some trial and error to figure that out. Okay, so it's time for a little bit of a break, but don't go anywhere because when we get back, I'm going to finish off some myths about insomnia, and then we're going to be jumping into exactly maybe why you're not sleeping, and then of course some tips and tricks of how you can get a better quality of sleep. We're going to be talking about, is it quantity or quality of sleep? I got some more studies to share with you and just lots of fun information. So don't go anywhere. I will be right back.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello. We're talking all about one of the most important things of life, and that is sleep. That is sleep. Okay, so we're talking about the myths of insomnia, and the first one was that you need 8 hours of sleep. That is a myth. There is a magic number for everybody. You just have to be able to find out your magic number. Myth number 2 is getting up at night for 15 minutes means I lose 15 minutes of sleep. Okay, have you ever thought of that in your head? Basically, that is false because you're not just losing that 15 minutes of sleep. When life wakes you up in the middle of the night, whether you have to go to the washroom or you just wake up, whatever it is, waking, maybe you have to change your pajamas because you had a hot flash. I don't know what it is, but if you woke up for 15 minutes, it's actually a lot harder on our body and our minds than we think it is. And about in 2014, there was some research about this. It's actually its first of its kind study in 2014, believe it or not. It was in the Sleep Medicine Journal. And it basically looked at the effects of sleep interruptions over 2 nights. So all of the study participants slept for 8 hours, and researchers then measured their mood and ability to pay attention. And then a few nights later, the participants were split into 2 groups, and half slept for only 4 hours, while the other slept for 8 hours, but got woken up 4 times for about 10 to 15 minutes. So they basically spent at least 7 hours of sleep, and then 3 hours longer than the 4-hour group, right? So everyone's mood and attention was then measured again from these different groups. And anyone basically who has ever had a newborn or has been on call for work, you can kind of predict what happens next if you've had your sleep interrupted multiple times. And the mood and attention of people with interrupted sleep were just as bad as those who slept for only 4 hours. So both groups felt depressed, they felt irritable, and they had a hard time getting going in the morning. And the performance on the attention task got worse the longer they kept at it. So basically, if you do have a baby, you are on call, you have to wake up for parts in the middle of the night, you might as well just only sleep 4 hours, because waking up for those 15 minutes, you're losing a lot more than that. So my next myth I want to share with you, which I was quite surprised when I started doing research for today's episode, this surprised me a little bit. And this myth is that I should go to bed and wake up at the same time every single day. And yes, you're probably thinking, like, what? Everyone has always told me. I've even told you that. Well, when I did more research about this, it's kind of half a myth. Basically, the truth is that you should wake up at the same time every day, give or take like an hour or so. And yes, that even means on weekends, you should only be waking about an hour or so later than you do on the weekday. But what happens if you wake up later, you've slept in, you've basically forced yourself into a jet lag without getting to go anywhere, which is just unfortunate. So basically, you need to be making sure that you're waking up at the same time, but you don't necessarily need to be making sure that you're going to bed at the same time, which this blows my mind a little bit. I'm still a little bit skeptical about this. So as for, going to bed at the same time, you can kind of throw a set bedtime out of the window. And this is just because you need to listen to your body more than anything. Not, okay, I usually go to bed at 9 o'clock and wake up at 7 o'clock or whatever. You have to listen to your body of when you want to go to sleep. And I do think that your body gets on a clock when you're able to go to sleep at the same time every single night. But it's actually just quite impossible to do that most of the time, right? So you just basically have to listen to your body. And if you are tired before your set bedtime, go to bed. But also if you have energy, you feel productive, maybe you're doing things and you want to stay up later, there's actually technically nothing wrong with that as well. The most important thing is that you're listening to your body, you're paying attention to those mental cues, those physical cues, and really figuring out what works for you. So my last myth I want to share with you is if I can't sleep, I should just wait it out. So yes, your bed is cozy and warm. It's nice to lay in and relax. But this is all mental, okay? So you have to be relating your bed to one thing only, and that is sleep. That is nighttime. That's it. So if you're laying in your bed, you are tossing and turning for a very long time. Maybe you do work in your bed. I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I like to do my work in my bed because it's nice and comfy. Maybe you just watch a lot of TV in your bed, which of course we're all guilty for. But the thing is that we should only be relating our bed to one thing, and that is sleep. And when you start to associate your bed with other things, that means you're associating it with wakefulness. And so basically when you watch TV, you scroll on your phone, those two things are becoming associated with your bed. So with time, your bed could mean sleep, or it could also mean stay up and work on my school project for however long, or, whatever it is, watch TV or scroll through Pinterest. So basically, you can still do all these things, but you need to do them, out in a different area. Get a comfy couch, get a comfy chair, do something that's right beside your bed. But the less that you do extra activities inside of your bed, the easier it is it's going to be to fall asleep. I really found this when I had to switch to online schooling and I had my desk. Well, first of all, I didn't have a desk in my room and I had to do everything on my bed. So I was doing my online classes in my bed. I was doing my writing on my bed. I was doing a lot of things on my bed. And I found that I didn't, since I didn't have that separation from a workplace and my bed place, like my sleep relaxing place, I was having a really hard time falling asleep at night. And it wasn't until I got myself a desk and I forced myself to make a workspace and then my rest place separate that I actually started to get back on track with my sleep. So this does work. It is very important. Try to separate those things. Your bed should be only for one thing, and that is sleep. Okay, so there are the myths that I wanted to talk about insomnia, because we all go through it. And so maybe you're not sleeping right now, so maybe you do have insomnia. But there's more to it than just that too. Maybe your diet is affecting the way that you are not sleeping. So spicy foods can actually contribute to like your painful heartburn and stuff, which can leave you feeling uncomfortable. Maybe you're extra full. And this all relates back to your mental health. You need to be fueling your mind with the right food, not only so that your mind is functioning properly, you're getting the right nutrition and you're getting the right neurotransmitters, your serotonin, and all of those good things are happening in your brain. You also have to make sure that those foods are fueling you for a good night's rest. If you're eating a bunch of junk and things that aren't nutrient dense, you're actually going to have a hard time sleeping because your brain is feeling all out of whack because of the things that you're putting into your body, which then is going to be affecting your sleep as well. The lack of exercise, also related to your mental health. If you have anxiety and your brain is going a million miles a second, like mine is all the time, you have to be moving, you have to be exercising. Have you ever just like felt lazy all day? Maybe you had just like a lazy day, you're hanging out on the couch, and you kind of felt just like lousy all day because you have no energy because you're sitting around doing nothing. And then you try to go to bed and you can't sleep because your body and your brain has not had the time to move around, to get those things flowing, get your blood flowing, get your brain working properly. So you need to make sure that you are exercising a little bit, going for at least a 15-minute walk. Even if you want to have a lazy day, make sure you do a little bit of exercise. Do some crunches while you watch your Netflix show. Things like that. It can really boost your mental health, which is going to boost your sleeping quality, which is really important. You actually might also suffer from restless leg syndrome, and women are actually twice as likely as men to have restless leg syndrome. So this is basically a condition that causes a really weird, creepy, crawly feeling, some uncomfortable movements in the legs at night. And then this is often linked to hormonal changes in your early life or during pregnancy as well. You might be suffering from this. It's just miserably uncomfortable. And researchers at Harvard have linked this condition to an increased risk for heart disease and depression. So if you do suffer from depression, you might be getting restless leg syndrome as well. So exercise every day is kind of a solution to this. Take a hot bath before bed, massage your legs, cut back on things that can make you kind of jittery. So caffeine, tobacco, if these measures don't work, then you want to go talk to your doctor about it, but there are some things that you can do. So exercise, your diet, taking care of your mental health, you're taking a hot bath, self-care, massaging your legs, things like this can really help with this syndrome. And then, of course, like depression and sleep could be a very strong reason why you are not sleeping right now. Life might be a little bit chaotic. You might have had a completely change of your schedule because of everything going on in our world right now. So it's really important to get on your own schedule, to be focusing on you, to making sure that you're taking care of your mind and your body. So it's time for another break, but don't go anywhere because when I get back, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that. We're going to be talking about, the difference between do we want quality of sleep or quantity of sleep, and I'm going to be giving you more tips on how to focus on your mental health for you to get a better sleep at night. So stay tuned. I will be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
back to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast. We are in the last stretch of today's episode. Woohoo! Okay, so we're talking all about sleep. One of the most important things in life is sleep. Okay, and so why? Maybe you're having some trouble sleeping right now. Maybe you got short-term insomnia or long-term insomnia. Maybe you're really stressed out. It's basically impossible to sleep when the weight of your day is pressing on you at night. So finding a sense of calm before bed isn't always easy, especially when you can't unplug from the demands of your day, if your brain is going a million miles a second. So you really got to establish a wind down time. This is something that I noticed as well when I was started to work from home and do school from home. Before I was working from home, I had a very long commute. So when I was taking transit and stuff, it was a couple hour commute, but when I was driving, I had at least a 45-minute drive to my school and back home from my school. And so I always had that 45 minutes to shut down, listen to some tunes. It was my unwind time, and I didn't even realize that it was my unwind time until I didn't have that 45-minute drive. And all of a sudden, I was done my work day and I was like wide awake and so much energy, and I had problems sleeping at night. And I realized it's because I didn't have my regular wind down time. And I actually started going for drives around my neighborhood to give myself that unwind time that my mind and my body was used to. So for me, it was driving because that's what the kind of routine I was in. But maybe for you, it's having a glass of tea and reading a book. Right? Like there's things like that you can do. You got to find what obviously works for you, but having a wind down time is so important for your stress management when it comes to your sleep. And then of course, depression is a very common compromiser of sleep, which I've mentioned multiple times in today's episode. And it's much more common in women than it is in men. That's going to disrupt your sleep. But basically, women who are depressed may sleep more than usual. But that it doesn't mean that you might be getting quantity of sleep, but you're not getting quality of sleep. So some of the antidepressants too that are meant to kind of counteract depression can also interfere with your sleep as well. So maybe if you are on antidepressants, you're having a hard time sleeping, you might want to talk to your doctor. But you really got to pay attention to what works for you. You can't just be taking sleep medication every single night. Talk therapy is super helpful because it's going to help your mind, it's going to help you clear your head, and it's going to help you have a more restful sleep at night. You may have also just developed bad sleeping habits. Sometimes insomnia stems from like long ingrained behaviors. So like staying up too late or engaging in like stimulating activities before bed. So basically what you want to do is you want to follow a few basic sleep hygiene strategies, okay? And you want to go to bed, you want to wake up around the same times each day, right? You want to keep your bedroom cool, you want to keep it dark, you want to keep it comfortable, right? You want to have all those pillows and blankets. You want to use your bed for only sleep. And if you can't fall asleep within 15 minutes, you need to get up and leave the bedroom. Okay, remember, you can only relate your bed to one thing, and that is sleep. So read or do something quiet activity for 15 to 20 minutes. Go into your living room, sit on a comfy chair or your couch, read a book for 15 to 20 minutes, then try again. Okay, and this is going to be getting you back into healthier habits when it comes to sleep, and this could really help you get a more restful sleep at night. So now I really want to talk about more of, good quality of sleep and good quantity of sleep and what exactly the difference of that is. And the National Sleep Foundation recently kind of released these key indicators of good sleep quality. And it was actually established by a panel of experts. So here are some things that are kind of determine quality of sleep. These are all said from researchers. I'm sure there's more. There's self-opinions on these, but these are the kind of 4 things that determine quality of sleep. And the number one thing is sleeping more time while in bed. So at least 85% of the total time you are asleep. Falling asleep in 30 minutes or less. Waking up no more than once per night. And being awake for 20 minutes or less after initially falling asleep. Okay, so basically you don't want to be getting interrupted. You want to be falling asleep in a good amount of time, and you want to be sleeping in your bed for 85% of that time. And basically in the past, people defined sleep by negative outcomes. So including like sleep dissatisfaction, which, were quite useful for identifying kind of the underlying reasons of quality of sleep. And so the researchers took all this information, they did surveys, and they tried to figure out exactly what good sleep quality is. And so do you need quality of sleep or do you need quantity of sleep? And the answer is you need quality of sleep. Like I said before, some people can have 4 hours of quality of sleep, where other people can have, 8 hours of interrupted sleep and still feel just the same as the person who had 4 hours of sleep. So it's really important to figure out what works for you. And when it comes to your mental health and your quality of sleep, this is one of the first things that you need to be taking care of, because whether you're sleeping too much or you're sleeping not enough due to your mental health, those are going to cause very big disruptions in your life. You're not going to have the energy. You're not going to have the appetite as well to be fueling your body properly. You're going to be disconnected. You're going to cause problems in your relationships, your family relationships, your friends, your workplace. You are going to probably be running off of a schedule, like your schedule's going to be a little messed up. You're probably running late for work now or late to your duties. You're just going to have lower energy, lower motivation, and it can really, really affect the way that you function in your life. So how do we make sure that we're getting quality of sleep and also taking care of our mental health, right? All within this. Like, it all goes hand in hand. And one of the things that you really need to try to do is to control your exposure to light. So obviously sunlight really helps boost our mental health. We want to be exposed to sunlight. This is also obviously going to help your quality of sleep. And so expose yourself to bright sunlight in the morning. Do not let yourself be in the dark for too long. So the closer to the time that you get up, the better then you are exposed to sunlight. So have your coffee outside. Or eat breakfast by a sunny window. Get that light to your face, and this is going to help you wake up. It's also going to be helping boost your mental health. Also by just spending more time during the day outside and in the sunlight. Take your work breaks outside, exercise outside, go for a walk, instead of doing these things at night or when it's dark, right? So just spend more time in the sunlight. Let as much natural light into your home or workspace as possible during the day. And then you can also use a light therapy box. This can also be really beneficial for somebody struggling with their mental health and just really needs to be exposed more to that sunlight. Speaking of light as well, though, you should be avoiding bright screens, like about 1 to 2 hours before your bedtime, which is really hard to do. We all want to watch TV. We all want to be on our phones. I get it. It is really difficult to do, but if you can get into the habit of putting away your electronics, putting away the remote control, not turning on the TV 1 to 2 hours before you want to go to bed, it makes a world of a difference for your quality of sleep as well as your mental health. You're letting your brain focus just on the moment, even just reading a book, focusing on yourself, maybe take a bubble bath, hang out, do some form of self-care maybe, maybe write in your journal. Whatever it is you want to do that before you are turning on your screens. Put those away, set yourself those times. It's going to help your mental health. It's going to help your quality of sleep. Be smart about what you eat and drink too. I did mention diet a little bit before, but limit your caffeine and nicotine intake. Avoid alcohol before bed. I know it seems like it's going to make you fall asleep, but your quality of sleep when you have alcohol in your system is very low. So avoid drinking, too much alcohol or any alcohol at all before bed. But also just avoid drinking too much liquids in the evening as well, so that you're not interrupting yourself throughout the night to go to the washroom. And then also cutting back on sugary foods and refined carbs can actually help improve your quality of sleep as well as your mental health. We talked about that in last week's episode about cravings and mental health. So yeah, wind down, clear your head, have your little wind down ritual. Make sure you're avoiding alcohol and caffeine and nicotine and avoiding screens, making sure you're getting enough sunlight. I feel like I'm rambling on, telling you to do a million things to get a better quality of sleep, but I cannot pressure enough how important quality of sleep is. So I hope today's episode was useful for you. I hope you found that close relationship between mental health and sleep and how important it is to stay on track of both of those. So they go hand in hand. So you got to take care of your mental health so you can get a better night's sleep. You got to take care of your sleep to make sure your mental health is functioning properly as well. So thank you so much for listening to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. I so appreciate you being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button, to like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. It helps out a ton, and I super duper appreciate it. So thank you so much. Till next time. Stay happy, stay positive, and I hope you sleep well tonight. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find the show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast.